Hi, everybody. It's Mike Kennedy back with another video on legal ethics and professional responsibility. So last week I did a post and video on former client conflicts of interest and how do we analyze whether a conflict exists between a current or prospective client and a former client. I forgot to include something in the video that's important when it comes to that analysis, something that actually comes up in several of the inquiries I do or the questions I receive at CLEs. So tonight I don't have, or this morning, excuse me, I don't have a new presentation. I'm just augmenting last week's. I actually started this video last night. My favorite football team is the Steelers, and they played last night. And I decided I would do the video in the first half, then watch the second half. As I'm doing the video, I realize from texts I'm receiving from friends, the Steelers are getting clobbered in the first half. So the second half might end up being moot. So I decided to actually go watch the game. As soon as I started watching, the Steelers started doing better. So I had intended to come back to finishing the video, but I got so superstitious that, when I was working on the video, they were doing terrible. When I stopped, they started doing better. So I had a dilemma. Do I get the work done because I don't want to do it in the morning, or I help the Steelers win? I was in a Hobson's choice, so to speak. And dilemmas and Hobson's choices, or a Hobson's choice, are relevant to the discussion of former client conflicts of interest, and I'm going to mention them at the end. Okay, first, before I get to conflict, something really important. 2 days ago was the 12-year anniversary of Joan dying in a car crash. In my opinion, Joan, nobody's been more important to the Vermont bar or the Vermont legal profession than Joan was, or more important than Joan continues to be, through the impact that she had on so many of us who are still part of the Vermont legal community. I hope that we never forget her. I posted a blog yesterday morning. So the blog posted just before this one in her memory. It was short. It includes a link to a longer post that I did a couple years ago. That post is not just my thoughts, but it's thoughts from many Vermont judges and lawyers who knew Joan. Check it out. I'd like you to either become familiar with her or refamiliarize yourself with her so that we can keep her memory and spirit alive. She meant a lot to me personally and professionally. So whenever I have a chance, I will work to keep her memory alive. And I hope a lot of us do the same. I actually have a can of Coke because I knew I'd be talking about her. And if you knew Joan, you know why I have the can of Coke. Okay, thank you for that. Former client conflicts. So when it comes to the rules of professional conduct, I often urge lawyers not to get caught up in trying to memorize the rule or the comments to the rule. Instead, think about concepts. Concepts can simplify things and can be more intuitive when it comes to making sure you do the right thing out there in your daily practice. The concept I like to use when talking about former client conflicts is this: don't switch sides. So if you want, you can memorize Rule 1.9 and the comments and every single advisory opinion or disciplinary opinion that references Rule 1.9. But even if you do all that reading, it can be distilled down to don't switch sides. To introduce that comment in last week's video, I used a basketball story. And the basketball story, in a way, does a disservice to the idea of don't switch sides. That's a conflict of interest. Here's how. So I have to repeat the story. I'll do it quickly. I had come from practice before I did last week's video, a practice at which I got a group together to play offense. Different group played defense. I told the offensive group, here are 3 plays we're going to run in order. And I tell them secretly, the defense doesn't know what's coming. That way they have to learn how to react. We run the first play. Somebody on defense had to go out. So somebody from offense goes to defense. Someone new comes in to play offense. We go to run the next 2. Somebody who's still on offense says, wait a minute, coach, that girl who just went to the other team, it's not fair. we need a new place. And of course, she was right. So we put in a new place. But as I was living it in the moment, I thought, boy, what a great little story to introduce the notion of don't switch sides and how that can be a conflict of interest. Here's where some will argue, or without knowing it, because they don't know the story, have argued, well, Mike, I don't have a conflict of interest, even though I switched sides. The argument goes like this. In all the inquiries I do, I've mentioned how many involve conflicts and how many of those involve former client conflicts. And that subset often result where we're at a point where I say something like, wow, sounds like you've switched sides, or sounds like you've changed teams. That's probably a conflict of interest. I'm not sure you want to do that. And the lawyer, it's not uncommon for a lawyer to respond, sure, Mike, I get it. I am on the other side now. That is a former client on the other side, but does it matter? Because I'm not even positive I remember the former client. I certainly don't remember anything about their case, and I don't even have access to the file anymore. So there's nothing I know or could find that I could use to my former client's detriment or to my new client's benefit. There's no risk here. So I could envision a lawyer pushing back on my basketball story by saying something like this: Mike, your basketball story doesn't hold up, and here's why. In your basketball story, the people who were on offense, they weren't concerned necessarily or just by the fact that their former teammate was now on the other team. They were concerned about the information that their former teammate brought with her to the new team. What the plays are, information that she could use against her former team to stop them, to benefit the defense. So Mike, my situation is different. Yes, I've switched sides, but unlike that basketball player, I did not bring any information with me to the new team. I don't remember anything about my former client, so there's nothing I could use against my former client to help the new client. So it's completely different than your basketball situation. I get it. I understand the argument. Here's the problem with the argument. The Vermont Supreme Court has said that it doesn't matter. So in Vermont, and I think in most states, if not all, if two cases are substantially related to each other, so if the new case is substantially related to the old case, as a policy decision, we've decided that we will presume that the lawyer received confidential information in the old case from the client. Not only will we presume that, if the lawyer says, okay, I know you presume that I received this confidential information when I used to represent that person, but I don't remember anything about that person. We don't care. We're not going to make the former client then disclose the information in order to protect it. That idea, that policy decision is set out in comment 3 to rule 1.9. It's also in a Vermont Supreme Court opinion. So the opinion issued in 97 or 98, can't remember which, it was a couple of years before I became the prosecutor. And it wasn't issued in a disciplinary case, it was a criminal case where defendant was charged with crimes against one of defendant's children. Many years before that, defendant had been represented by the now prosecutor in a juvenile matter that involved defendant's parenting of children. In the criminal case, defendant gets convicted. On appeal, makes several arguments. One of which was, hey, by the way, the prosecutor who convicted me had formerly represented me in a very similar case and didn't tell my new counsel, didn't disclose it. The Supreme Court ended up overturning the conviction on grounds unrelated to this video, but then said, so we don't need to reach defendant's claim about the prosecutor having formerly been defendant's lawyer, but it's so important that we're going to reach it. And here's what the court said. The court said, when two cases are substantially related to each other, we are going to presume that confidential information was shared in the first one between the former client and the lawyer. Next, we don't care if lawyer says, but I don't remember anything. We don't even care. We're not going to explore whether lawyers being truthful about their memory. It doesn't matter, because regardless, we are not going to make the information come out in order to keep it from coming in the new matter. We're not going to put, and this is what the court said, the former client to the Hobson's choice of having to disclose confidential information in order to protect it. So that's where we are in Vermont. So if your theory is, well, yeah, I switched teams, but it doesn't matter because I don't remember anything about the first team, that doesn't matter. Okay, we're not going to go there. We've simply decided that if you switch sides and if the new matter is substantially related to the old matter, you have information that we are not going to make the former client disclose to protect, and you're out, either disqualified or you have a conflict under Rule 1.9a. That's it. Quick aside, when the court mentioned Hobson's choice, I realized that, boy, I wonder who Hobson was or what a Hobson is. I knew what the phrase meant. I didn't know where it came from. I thought maybe Hobson was like a job, one of those jobs that doesn't exist anymore, like a blacksmith or a miller, one of the characters from the Canterbury Tales. No, that's not what Hobson is. Hobson was a person who made people make a false choice, and that's where the phrase comes from. But I was fascinated to learn that in philosophy or psychology, whatever it is, there's a difference between a dilemma and a Hobson's choice. And there's a difference between a dilemma, a false dilemma, and a Hobson's choice. Then there's this other thing called Morton's fork, Morton, like the salt company, and fork, like the utensil. And a Morton's fork, I don't know what it is, but it's not a dilemma. It's not a Hobson's choice. It's different. So anyhow, I don't know what got me off on that, but it just found something new that struck me and I started to share. So I apologize. Anyway, maybe I'll edit that out. That's the deal on former client conflicts. If you don't switch sides, and when you switch sides, it's no defense that I don't remember anything about the side I used to be on. Thank you for listening, for putting up with this, and especially thank you for remembering Joan and anything you can do to sort of keep her memory or her spirit alive. And one way you can keep her spirit alive, help somebody else. Joan was a helper. She did more for more people than most people do for one person. And that's, I think, how we can best keep her memory alive. Thank you. Have a great day, great weekend, and we'll chat again.